morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Alero Edu and this is Sunrise, coming to you a bit late this morning, but we'll tell you about that in a moment once my partner introduces himself.
Amakine, good morning and welcome. Well, seriously, not much I do about that one, trust me.
Don't give up, don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up.
No, well, giving up is not in the
It's not in the cards
right
at all.
Now.
No.
It's the only thing in the question, for how long do I have to hold on?
Well, that's what has kept you going up till now.
Believe me.
So just keep up the hope. Things will happen. Things are happening. And this Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is beginning to exasperate a lot of Nigerians because it's the only gateway out of Lagos State. And they haven't made it any bigger. They haven't built any other exits out of Lagos. So this is going to keep happening.
It's sad.
It seems. And it's always tankers and trailers.
The sad and painful part of it, Alero, is that, you know, I was a secondary school student in the late 70s, early 80s. And on my own, I used to ply that route. I mean, Lagos to Ibadan, on the average, 30 to 45 minutes, you're done. Then.
I have done toll gate to toll gate in 50 minutes before.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, we knew that this was going to happen. We know the growth rate of our population.
Yeah.
We know that Lagos has perhaps the highest population rate in the country. We know that Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in the whole of the Southwest is a major road artery. We know the importance of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in the whole of West Africa.
So what don't we know?
I think that's really the problem. I think what we don't know is the problem. Maybe we don't know, or we didn't know that we're supposed to plan ahead. Just maybe we didn't know that. Back then...
we haven't had a census in how many years, so we don't know that the population is growing at the rate at which it is.
Well, I'll excuse myself. Because, I mean, it's not strange what the population growth rate is. Successive governments have come up with that. Perhaps the sad part of that is that every census has always been contentious. But that doesn't take away the data that has been collected about the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway over the years. It was 2 lanes, now it's been made into 3 lanes or 4 lanes and what have you. But the fact that we're not able to track the issues is another problem. Perhaps one thing that's been consistent in all of the challenges that we've been having with this major road artery is that tankers and trucks have increased in number, unlike in the past, where the railways worked effectively.
Yeah, true.
But now that the railways are coming up, let's just hope that we can deal with that as well. So is it that we didn't know that the railways were very, very prominent in dealing with that challenge, or what? So maybe there's something, you are older than I am, so maybe there's something you know that I don't.
You spoke about data. If we have the census data, as you mentioned, I'm sure that we could use those figures to extrapolate.
It's the extrapolation that I said, excuse me, from that we, because I mean...
Right, Ayo. So there's a terrible traffic on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and it has kept everybody from getting to where they're going. Now let's look at the menu.
Well, what do we have? Okay, I'll say ladies first. So
okay,
I'm nice like
so
that.
we're going to start with Nigeria Security Architecture and Assessment.
And of course, coming right after that one is this one, Lagos City Transport Challenge. Of course, we know all that has come as a result of that over the years.
Yeah, and the biggest news this week since Tuesday, the U.S. elections, the lessons for Nigeria. Can we learn any lessons from this?
The question then will be, will we learn the lessons? Chartered Arbitrators Conference is also on the menu today. We'll be taking a look at that as well.
And as is usual, we shall close with the Guests of the Week segment. Today we have a she. Today, she is a she. So that's the lineup for today, and without wasting any time, we'll just get straight into it since we already started late.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the Nigerian security architecture, and we're going to try and do an assessment of it. Insecurity in the country seems to have escalated over the years despite efforts being made by the government to bring sanity to the country. So on Thursday, the president reiterated that his administration would not allow anybody or any group to threaten the peace of the country or sabotage the government's efforts. Well said, Mr. Presido.
Well, he, of course, you know that he said that when he met traditional rulers in Abuja. He also made another statement along the same line in Ilorin when he was represented by the Minister of Information, saying, look, we know we haven't done, well, if you think we haven't done enough as a government, forgive us. We're trying our best. Meanwhile, in the same vein, the Inspector General of Police, Adamo, has again stressed the need for Nigerians to embrace the community policing strategy, which he says is the best way to combat crime in the country. Well, that is part of the architecture that government is looking at now, that part of the assessment.
Right, so we have Colonel Yomidari, retired, who's a security expert. Good morning, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on
And
board.
Dr. Oamien Okidivri. Pardon me.
It's Ohidevie.
Ohidevir,
Yeah.
who is also a security expert.
Thank you very much.
And thank
It's a
you very
pleasure.
much.
And we also have Mike Ejiofor, former DSS operative, who is also a security expert. He joins us virtually in this conversation, but well, he will join us in due time. Well, Dr. Ohidevri, forgive me if I messed that up. Well, we have been talking about architecture for like a million years. What does it mean, really? For maybe like a kind of an overview and a refresher to many of us, to many people who may be watching right now. When you talk about architecture, security architecture, what does it mean?
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate the analysis on the traffic situation. So we should not go there again. Incidentally, both of us are ex-military. I'm sure that we know a better way to get here before you. And we did that.
Oh, you came in helicopters.
You know, unfortunately, Nigerians are very industrious. Okay, so if you give a Nigerian any
Did you say
situation...
unfortunate?
Yes, unfortunately.
Oh.
Now, when you are industrious, you are supposed to become productive. Now, what we find is that we are industrious, but it's unfortunate to us because our industrious capacity is going to negate and is negating consistently our community and ability to live. When you put a Nigerian in a space, he wants to make money from that space. If you put him in the space of power, he wants to make money from that space. And if power runs successfully, it does not make money. We don't serve. We don't have servitude tendencies. So we want to make money. So we dilapidate power to sell generators. So when it comes to security, unfortunately also, we want to secure. But because there is the tendency that people run businesses, they want businesses to run, they want the economy to work, and every other person is industrious in their own capacity. Those in power that can manipulate the opportunities now look at security situations not productive enough. So their industrious capacity comes into play and say, why don't the area boys in Oshodi just start breaking bottles tomorrow morning? So that we can have a committee to look at the whole thing. Who can we talk to? These boys in Benue, the Tiv and the Jukun people, how long have they fought? This Ijo,
I'm trying to...
I'll get you somewhere.
No, I'm trying to imagine how that's even possible, that some people will sit down to create trouble?
Nigerians can look at the world. If you get Nigerians into the medical system in the world, because the medical system in the world can become productive if you put your ingenuity positively. They put it positively, and it gets productive. And you hear one Nigerian has made name somewhere in Russia, in Britain. Yeah. But in Nigeria, if you put your ingenuity positively, you make nothing. You get a bad name, somebody goes to your primary school and rejects something, and they say your name is not what's on your primary school result. Somebody goes to reject something in your family history, and you are given a bad name, and you are defending that all the time.
Forgive me, how does that play on the architecture? Because I believe that
that's
the
what I'm going
security
to.
architecture is not with the people,
Yeah.
it's with government, right?
Yeah. Now, in the Western world, their insecurity situations made them to start looking for security solutions. In Africa, and down to West Africa and Nigeria, our insecurity situations made us start looking for security solutions. You will be shocked that the community policing you are looking for already exists. Let us go back to history. You remember when someone steals a tuber of yam from a barn? There is a local system in place that he is sent away from that village. And the next village will not take him, so he stays in a bush somewhere. And they give it a name. Coming down to modernized society, if you steal and you are caught in your street, in your village, nobody marries from your family anymore. No, you have to clear that name. Nobody gives you appointment anymore. You are from what family? They say the family you came from. Nah. They are like this. So we had this system in place that abhors criminality, that resists any kind of corrupt setting. So we had a structure in place
Until
we started to dilapidate it, to enhance our opportunity to control. In the whole world now, if you need to control anything, you need to put in a new law or something through the UN, through the international human rights, through the travel restrictions and all that, then Nigerians obey themselves. So because of that, we within our space dilapidated the judiciary, sir. We attacked the media until the media right now can only display what is permissible to a large extent. If you cross some lines, have you heard the recent blockade on some media because of NSAS? That one is being defended right now. So because of all of this, we had an architecture, if that is the name, because we started to go after words. Remember the time we were talking about the military and all we started to look for crocodile smile, we started to look for animals that we dance. You don't need all of that. Why? Because you have a system that works. Look for the people that dilapidate the system. Then you will identify where the problem is.
Doc, can you just hold that thought?
As an opening.
Yes. We'll just take a short break, come back, and really get into this discussion. Thank you for staying with us. We're still looking at the security architecture, and we're trying to assess it and possibly look for how to improve on it so that we can all sleep easy. So, Colonel, the same question that Ayo asked him, I'm going to put to you. What is this architecture that people talk, security architecture? Let's hear your definition of it.
Well, thank you very much, Alero, and it's always delightful to be here. Thank you. For me, security architecture is how you manage the security hierarchy of a society.
Okay.
And this has to do with all the security agencies, both formal and informal.
Can you just put a comma there or a semicolon? Which ones are the informal ones?
Well, the informal ones are maybe you want to look at private security.
Okay.
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 And then when you talk about the formal ones,
The
you are looking
police,
at the
the
police, the
army,
army, and
Navy, and so on.
And so on.
But the challenge here that I have seen, because I try to look at, when we talk about this whole security architecture thing, which agencies are involved? Many people see the police and know the police, know the army. Which other agencies are there?
You have the National Intelligence Agency. Okay. You have the Office of the National Security Advisor, which more or less coordinates the entire gamut of the security architecture.
SSS?
SSS,
Customs?
they're part of it.
NSCDC.
NSCDC, National Security and Civil Defense.
Yeah.
And then, of course, lately you have the Federal Road Safety Corps being part of it too. And then, of course, we can add the Amotekuns
And such.
and such other bodies. So they also come under informal.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we then assume that maybe a number of these agencies, these other agencies that you mentioned, they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're not doing their jobs? Because we hear a lot more about the police and the army than any of these other agencies when we talk about security.
Well, one thing I want to put on table here is that when we are even talking about security, for crying out loud, security is everybody's business. Everybody's business. Right from that man on the street there who sees another person trying to pick somebody else's purse and he looks away. Is he performing his duty, even as a citizen? The best thing to do is to draw attention to that. And of course, if possible, ensure that that person is arrested.
This is where you seem to tie in with what Dr. Hidri was saying the other time, that it starts with the community.
Yeah.
But then the formal, if we can use Colonel Darius' words, that the formal agencies themselves, many people would assume probably that they're not pulling their weight enough, like the NCDC, the NIA, the DSS, because if they were pulling their weight, information is everything. I think when we have talked about data here, intelligence, I understand, is about data. So if the data is there, why then are these agencies not doing that?
Ayo, if you allow me to land before you go back to my brother, my dear friend across. You see, like I was saying, security is everybody's business. And then you have just noted here that, let me take your words, that the formal, that the known security organs or agencies are probably not pulling their weight. You said that, right?
Well, that's what anyone would assume if we only mention the police and the army and others are not mentioned at all, rarely ever mentioned.
Yeah, let me quickly say something here. You see, there's need for, because what we see playing out right now is proliferation. And sometimes, conflict of interests. And probably there's no clear-cut dichotomy between these organs. And then sometimes again, unnecessary, unhealthy rivalry. You find unhealthy rivalry, okay, amongst these, especially the formal organs, the formal agencies. So all these ones are not necessary, because I want to look at a situation whereby everybody is working towards the same objective.
Same goal.
So towards the same goal.
Yeah.
So let's be focused.
Okay.
All
right, Mr. Jaffa, good morning and thank you for joining us. Now, there have been there's been plenty of talk about rejigging the security architecture. Can you just tell us what things would be involved in this rejigging? What would we be talking about if we were to rejig our security architecture? Mr. Jeffo, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay. I'm saying that in our normal parlance now, we talk of restructuring. Rejigging the security architecture just simply means restructuring it to be effective. Like we have our security as it is now. I've always looked at it as not being very effective because it's too centralized for control. We look at the issue of the Nigerian police, for instance, that is controlled centrally from Abuja. You look at the Nigerian army. We need to, especially the police that is the statutory organ charged with maintenance of internal security. It's supposed to be close to the people, but they're too distant from the people. You can see what happened in this NSAS, that there was a lack of effective control. So we need to decentralize, if you will, to make it effective. So you rejig it. In fact, as we have the problems of security now, we'll talk about the leadership of the various security agencies. We also need to rejig, bring in some fresh idea, bring in some fresh blood to make them more effective.
Oh dear. We're having problems with that.
Something.
But with that connection.
Yeah. Doctor, so this is where we are now, and we've been talking about this for like forever. I think it was 2018 or 2019, the government came up with another document about the security architecture of Nigeria. They said we wanted it to be more citizen-centric than government or regime or administration-centric. That's since came on board. I think it was 2018 or 2019, I'm not sure right now. From where you stand as a citizen and as a security operative, did you even see that kickoff?
Well, I'm happy we are seeing the opening that I did earlier. You have heard from this Oga now. You see, from the time of constabulary, where the police rides his bicycle around the community, the security is community sensitive and centered. Because we always have a DPO. We have PCROC, police community relationship. Some people, you see the emblem in their car. They have meetings in some area commands on how to help to the vehicle and all that. You know, what is the problem? One, people cannot drive their vehicles and obey traffic rules. So you need someone to implement it. Two, people cannot do businesses together without getting some corruption and everything. So you need a police officer to take them to courts. Three, people started cyber crime. So you need a cyber agency. People started financial crime. So you needed a financial agency like EFCC and all that. So as the dynamics of crime increases, as the dynamics of crimes thickens, you align agency responsibility not to create an agency. You align agency responsibility to meet those demands. So if you say there is a financial crime ongoing, and we have financial crime department in the police, creating the EFCC was somebody's agenda, was somebody's idea. So every politician that comes, that is where they got the word rejig. The rejig you are hearing is not to put the security at the people's advantage. Anytime you hear rejig security, is to rejig security to fit a current and incumbent government to achieve their desires And one of their desire is to intimidate opponents, whether it's APC, PDP, anybody. Over these 30 years I've been studying it. It's to intimidate the other party, one. To put the people at beggarly positions. So because of that, you are looking for re-elections, you are looking to dominate the economic space, and you are looking to control the judiciary. So what are we rejigging? If we put police officers to control traffic, sir, and the population starts to explode, like you have identified, why not increase the number of police officers? To monitor traffic police officers. We used to like them. Sometimes you see them at some junctions, they are dancing, and people like them, people obey them. Have one on this Abuja-Ibadan Expressway and all of these places, and make them work 24 hours and pay them. So, if we need more police officers to manage a community that is growing, increase the number of policemen deployed to that DPO, that area command, increase their logistics. Then if you say there are so much cyber crime there and all that, get policemen to be trained for cyber attacks and all of that cyber crime activities.
We can't afford
Empower them.
We can't afford to increase their numbers.
Aha! So if you don't increase their numbers and you increase the numbers of the people in Senate, you increase the number of the people in legislation, you increase the number of their workforce, one of them having 2-3 secretaries, and you increase the number of policemen that are protecting a senator and a legislator, their wives, their children. And you can't afford to increase the number of policemen in a DPO's office, in an area command, on the road, and attacking incidences that concerns the people. So what are you rejigging, sir?
Ouch. Ouch. Mr. Jeffo, I believe we have you back with us now. Yes, you were saying something, but I would also like you to look at the issue of this call that we have had for some time now for the sacking of those who head some of our security agencies.
Yeah, without sounding like a broken record, the Senate, the governors, all interest groups, civil society organizations have called for the sack of the service chiefs. My mind and the mind of most Nigerians, that they have overstayed and we need fresh ideas. You can't continue to do something the same way, expecting the same result. It's only a madman that can continue that same way. They have tried their best. I think we should, as a matter of urgency, Mr. President should look at the issue, especially the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the regular forces, that we need to, because of the peculiar nature of what we have on ground, especially the insurgency in the Northeast, and this kidnapping and or what have you. We, apart from having overstayed, there is need to re-equip the military by building its capacity and capabilities to ensure that they meet emerging threats and demands. Look at what happened, the issue of the kidnap of the American, you know, and the collaboration with Nigeria, because there is this collaboration between all the international bodies and agencies in terms of global threat and war. There was effectiveness because they have the equipment. So we need to collaborate more in terms of fighting this crime. We can't continue to do the same thing the same way and expect a different result. It's not possible.
Well, one thing that also becomes interesting in this matter, well, you both are also ex-military, so you will probably be towing the same line, so I'm not going to be asking you the same question. But there is one that is also very, very prominent, and that is the issue of the police, which Dr. Hidure, has mentioned. In the wake of as a result of the aftermath of the NSAS protests, has come up the issue of SWAT training. The first question that came to my mind when I saw the videos of the SWAT being trained was, my mind just went straight to their welfare. How are they? We can see them training, doing all those gymnastics and all, but how are they being taken care of? behind the scene, when the camera is not there, how do they sleep? How do they feed? How far-reaching, maybe my concern is not genuine, Conodari, how far-reaching is their welfare on their performance as security officers?
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. I think that is a very, very germane issue that you have raised here. You see, when you pay peanuts, what do you expect to get? Monkeys. Monkeys. There is need for, first, like I was going to, fully express or analyze what I started earlier. Because the point I was just trying to make here is that we need to empower our institutions, and such that they can perform optimally. They need to be independent. Because the bane of our society, I must tell you, is corruption. Corruption.
When you say, institutions being independent, which one specifically are you talking about in the context of security?
Well, I'm talking about, because here we're discussing security, like the police force. My friend, Mike Ejiofor, did mention something. Centralization. We need to decentralize. We need to decentralize. And I've said this thing in this forum and times without number. So the fear, people will say, oh, by the time you create state police, community policing, the governors will hijack them. And I say, for crying out loud, let them hijack them. The people are watching. The people are watching. You see, if there's a lesson that Nigerians should take from this recently concluded NSAS movement.
Has it been concluded?
Well, one important lesson is that it cannot be business as usual again. It cannot be. We are getting to a situation whereby leadership will be put into account. We must account for our stewardship.
We finally got there.
Yes. Yes. It's still
So all
working.
those billions of dollars being siphoned away,
Yes.
the spotlight will soon be on them, right?
So be it. Good for us. Good for you. Good for me.
Yes.
So what are we saying here? Let's not deviate from your point that welfare. I saw the video of the SWOT training. First, I do not subscribe to that. I mean, I do not see any reason why we have to put that on national television, and as if you are training military in combat.
Or perhaps a way of showing.
Because now we are talking about community citizen-centric security.
Maybe that video or showing it like that was.
Yeah, I hope you saw that video.
Yeah, of course. That's what gave me the concern. Maybe it was government's attempt at saying, you know what, let's just let you know that we're doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what.
Yeah, but this is a special squad.
Yes.
So their terms of reference are going to be quite different from the terms of reference of ordinary policemen. They will not be deployed when there's one little armed robbery somewhere. They'll be deployed for big issues. So I would tend to think that training is important because they're not going to be sent after small fish and small fry.
Well, I'm not saying that the training is not important, but what I'm saying here is
You're saying it's too rigorous.
No. I never said that.
Okay.
No, I never said that.
Well, you said they were being trained like combatants.
Well, yes. And of course, putting it, on the television.
So the problem you have is putting it out for people to see.
Out.
Okay.
Let them be trained.
Well, maybe that's sending a warning out. So if you intend to do anything bad, these are the guys we're going to send after you. So watch out.
the new sheriff in town.
Yeah,
That's right.
Doctor, the question still remains. I like you to, put in your own, a little bit of whatever it is you think is important as far as the welfare is concerned. You've talked about the fact that for every security challenge, we come up with a security unit. For cybercrime, we came up with cybercrime police. For financial crimes, we came up with financial crimes and all of that. But now we are talking about special weapons and tactics. But for me, in all of it, when you set up these units, they need to be trained. But in the process of training them, their welfare, their mindset is also very, very important, because that is what gave rise to the issues that, birthed this whole NSAS thing. But you will respond to that when we return from this break. All right, well, thanks for staying with us. So, Doc, this whole welfare thing, we start a unit, we think about what they're going to do, but how about their welfare, especially when their jobs are specialized? It's that welfare thing across all of the security architecture that gives me concern here, because we've had the same issues with soldiers in the Northeast who, also complained. So many of these people, especially the lower rung of the ladder. But now that we are training a whole new set of people to engage in SWAT, I'm concerned that if we do not take care of their welfare, their psychology is tilted ab initio, and we can't expect anything good from them.
Thank you. Most people quickly go to salary when we talk about welfare. But we are sitting right here, right now in the studio, and you can put banter, you can just enjoy yourself because of ambience. Because of ambience. If you sit in a place that is stuffy, hot, dirty, and shabby, your mind gets like that. And your responses gets like that. And somebody is like, what's wrong with him? Hey, nothing. He's where he is for like 3-4 hours. Okay? So, when you see people in buses on the road, clogged together as passengers, and you see people in cars, wound up with air conditioning, you listen to the wordings. Will you get out of the road? The other one says, what's wrong with you? Because of ambience. Go to a police station. Go to a police training institute. Look about the ambience. Look about the respect. Leave ambience. Let's look about respect. A police officer comes to a judiciary setting, like a court. He presents facts after investigation. After investigation, the next day, the culprit that was taken to maximum prison, correctional center right now, calls him on the phone. Shebi, you don't do your worst. Or he seems him walks on the road. Professional respect for what they go through to generate intelligence and evidence against a criminal. Evans the kidnapper is a story to tell. He has been arrested before, came out arrested before. Now, finally, with all his own brothers, he has arrested for millions of dollars. Are we looking for evidence, sir? He's still there. Look at Wadume.
He's been sentenced.
Yes. That sentence is, look at all of those cases. Now, when you look at respect for the officer, then you look at his concerns. What are his concerns? His family, his wife, his children. Are they on a health plan? Will he get a call that your son collapsed in school? And he will hear that, oh, he was taken by an ambulance to the hospital. We'll say, okay, I'll call you guys later. But when you hear that your son collapsed in school, there's nobody here. We are pouring him water. They are pouring water on his body. And he's engaging public against the backdrop of what Oga said, that he's not well paid. Then he's looking at that. Then he pays rent, because not all of them has opportunity to stay in the barracks. Even while serving in the army, not all soldiers have opportunity to stay in the barracks. So people pay rent while serving for public service. Then finally, before I disturb you so much, do you give him the right and appropriate training to meet the demands of his job, so that he doesn't meet a suspect and the suspect is asking him questions that make him look stupid? What kind of training, retraining, refresher courses to upgrade and meet the challenges of crime that is very dynamic globally?
It's that these are, you will agree with me that these are very, very probing, issues. But Mr. Jofo, the same question to you about the welfare of the police. I'm hoping that we will not get into the same trajectory that we have been before now, in ensuring that psychologically, emotionally, financially, and even nutritionally, the police are well taken care of from the point of their training, so that when they get into the streets, they are not doing the same thing that we accused SARS of doing, that is taking advantage of people.
You see, the problem is that the issue of welfare for the police and all the security agencies is not something that should be toyed with. I've said this times without number. Like my colleague there rightly said, you're not talking about welfare in terms of payment of salaries. You're talking of welfare in terms of training, attitudinal change of the police, civility to the members of the public. These are quite important. If you don't do this, the police needs to change its orientation to the people. It's the people's police. They must be police friendly. As I speak to you, I'm speaking from Owerri. The IG was there 2 days ago, and you can see I passed through the police headquarters. Before this time, what you would have seen is a situation where people would just block the road because the IG is coming. I think that orientation is changing. The people were allowed access even in front of the government house to pass through, and I say, well, we will get there one day. So what the police needs, and the police leadership, I believe what they need to do, in addition to the welfare of the people by providing accommodation, not just in terms of salary, providing schools for the children wherever they are. You know, the police job is a situation where today you are there, the homes are destabilized, and you bring up children that we are not even able to control. So there must be a way that the education of the children must be taken into consideration, the welfare of the wife, because most times you see broken homes in the police, in the armed forces. So there must be a way that you stabilize the family, because any person who is working is getting 1 million naira a month and doesn't have a stable home. It's not going to do well. It's not going to work well. So all these things will be packaged in terms of welfare. Talking about this SWAT and all this training, I don't think it's necessary. Let us have some element of surprise. Get them properly trained, equip them, reorient them, and let them be for the people. It should not be police against them or we against the police. It's our police. And they must be friendly. They must be taught, especially on the issue of handling of members of the public. They need to be friendly to get the confidence of the people. If you don't have the confidence of the people, there is no way people will cooperate with the police. And that brings me again to the issue of localization of the police and our security forces. If I have somebody from Medugri, for instance, is posted to Bayelsa, or somebody from Sokoto posted to Ogun State, first you have language barrier, you have cultural differences, you have religious differences, and you are not going to get the confidence of the people to talk to you, to say, yes, we can confide in you and give you information. It's when you post people to the southeast, especially from the north, the idea is that these people are coming here to make money and installing toll gates and checkpoints, collecting money. You cannot get the confidence. Police need to build that confidence first before you start talking. And there's no way you can build that confidence without taking care of their welfare. It's very, very important. Welfare training and salaries and all are very, very important.
Okay. Colonel, the IG has been talking about community policing, which is where I think Mr. Ejiofor was going. What are your thoughts about community policing? I mean, I grew up in Lagos, and I know that growing up, there was some kind of community policing, because the policemen in the neighborhood knew the people in the neighborhood. They interacted with the people. So this bringing it back more or less, what are your thoughts about that? And do you think it's going to be successful?
Well, thank you very much. I have been a very strong advocate of community policing. And not only community policing, even state policing. Let's decentralize. Who is afraid? What are people afraid of? Let's decentralize because the police is too centralized, and that's why we're having problem. You find a situation whereby a governor, you call a governor, let me start from the state. You call a governor a chief security officer. He cannot even talk to the commissioner of police. The commissioner of police has to take permission from Abuja. You know, you've had instances where there's been public altercations between the commissioner of police and the state governor.
If I can just quickly ask you so that this is a little more robust.
Yes, please.
At what point did we unilateralize or centralize the police? Because ab initio, just as Lawrence said, we began with that community level policing.
Yes.
At what point did we have to unify or centralize everything?
Well, if we look back, I think that came with the coup of the 1966, all right, and then the Civil War period, and then the creation of states. So since we came with the creation of states, so that's, you know, that I believe that was when this centralization of the police force, you know, started.
So why didn't we, when we had the Second Republic,
yes,
what do you think necessitated us not going back to that system? We used a decentralized system in the First Republic. Why didn't we bring it back with the Second Republic?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot answer that question.
Doc, maybe you want to try?
Yes.
But
in my opinion,
you are arresting my train of thought. You are not
I just wanted to understand that. We'll come back to you.
You know, we have this combative politics that we started following from the military regime, and those people that were locked up in Adeco and all those fights, they came out combative. So when you now become centralized as having the president in your party, the first thing to do is to manipulate all powers to yourself so that you'll be able to limit the influence of the opponent. So if you trace it back, you will see that the political democracy that we practiced, we did not put in restrictions for collating power and putting it in the center. Because it is gradual. Like she said, policemen used to play football with us when we were growing up. So it was gradual. So it is politics that wants to get power to oppress, that they started to use the mechanism of government to restrict power to the center.
So if we are to rewind that, if we were to retouch it, what would be your... Okay, let me come back to you now. So taking from that, if we are to, you know, rework it from what he has said, if you agree with him, what should we be doing?
Well, we are still discussing community policing.
Exactly.
Okay, let's decentralize. Let's, right from the top, let's have state police, and then let's come down to the local government level and have community policing. Okay? Community policing will be coordinated at the local government level. Mm-hmm. At the local government level, you have the chairman of the local government, you have the DPO there, okay? You have some other organs like the National Security and Civil Defense Corps, you have them right in the local government.
Some will say that's a long shot, Colonel, because even now, how active are the local government?
Well, you have to empower them. That's what we are talking about. We have to empower these institutions so that they can function, okay? And then you hold them accountable too, okay? We have to empower them, you know? So community policing is just the best way to go. That will really help us in addressing, you know, the incessant crime situation that we have in this country. Because, for example, you know, when you're talking about community policing, like it's practiced everywhere, you have streets. Okay, you don't just go and station, you know, police vehicles or a battalion or you know unit of policemen in a particular VIP's house. That shouldn't be it. Okay. You decentralize. You have policemen, you know, in the streets. Maybe at the beginning of a major street,
Colonel,
you have a police vehicle parked there.
We must wind down at this moment. So I must take your final word, Mr. Ejiofor. What is the way forward? In 30 seconds, please.
The way forward is that the constitution must be amended to accommodate state police. That's the only way to go. Otherwise, we'll be in a vicious circle.
Well, the way forward is that there must be rules set up to say you cannot do this. If a government official wants to twist the police to go against the mandate of the police, there must be someone from the Police Service Commission that can bring up a document and say, you cannot do this. And if a police officer wants to do that, we should have a desk that we go to and that we come up and say, sir, you cannot do this.
Colonel.
Yes, my final word here is we must look at the police reform holistically, okay? Not just limiting it to the SWAT that has come to replace the NSAR, the SARS, okay? The whole policing system needs a reform. We need to overhaul it. We need to inject, we need to rejig, inject life into it, look into their welfare, look into their training, and I'm sure it will really help our policing.
Okay.
Along the line.
A comment here from Samwell Akman, and he says, they said ATM wouldn't work in Nigeria. They also once said second billing wouldn't work in Nigeria. Both work successfully. Why don't they just allow state policing? Why the pessimism? It's selfish, really. Let's allow state police.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with Mr. Mike Ejiofor. Well, we've had 3 security experts with us. Mr. Mike Ejiofor joined us virtually from Owerri. Colonel Yomi Dare was with us in Lagos, as well as Dr. Oamien Okideve. Thank you all very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
The conversation continues.
Absolutely. And
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
Well, ire simply means, I don't know how you want to interpret it. Good things, at least. That's what one can surmise it. Perhaps that's what we have coming next with the Chartered Arbitrators Conference being championed by the Chartered Institute of, Nigeria Institute of Chartered Arbitration. The registrar joins us this morning, Shola Ushudi John. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for...
So, a number of people are first of all asking the question in their heads, who are arbitrators?
Well, arbitrators are typically Nigerians.
Oh, really?
From all professions.
All professions?
That's right.
Oh, really?
I thought arbitration is Barija.
Yes, it is. But, when we talk about Parija, it's not only in the law sphere that you have it.
It's not only lawyers that can
Even in our everyday lives, we settle disputes.
Okay.
So
I can become a member of the institute?
Definitely. You can if you want to, if you're interested.
What do I need to have to be a member?
Well, basically what you need to have is to belong to a professional body. Starting entry level is from OND upwards. Because you need to have a good understanding of the English language and certain issues that you may be dealing with when you finally become inducted. So you start from the associate cadre, then you move up to the fellowship. So as I speak with you right now, we're also training undergraduate students from several universities across Nigeria. So it's not restricted to law.
Is this too late for me to join this set?
No, it's not. We have members. We have members from the 20s up to the 70s. So it has no age barrier in terms of you have to be particular age like 50 before you can become an arbitrator. No.
But then you put a caveat that you need to be a part of a professional organization.
Yes, because
body.
You need to be part of. Not really a professional, but you need to be a professional.
Okay.
Okay, as to belong to a particular profession.
Okay.
But notwithstanding that, we have other people that I will say they still belong to. Whichever way you look at it, everybody in Nigeria belongs to a profession. You may be a market woman. You may be into business. It's a profession. You could be a lawyer. You could be an engineer. So it depends on how you look at it. But basically, what we're trying to say is that you have dispute across all sectors. So whatever sector you belong to, there will be some form of dispute in your sector. And so we believe that you being a part of that sector will be able to handle better certain disputes that come out from your sector based on your professional or technical experience or expertise.
Yeah. So if I had a dispute with Ayo, for instance, and I didn't want to go to court, I wanted to come to you guys, how do I go about it?
Well, if you have a dispute, you don't want to go to court. First of all, it depends on the mechanism you want to use. Because when we talk about the Nigerian Institute of Arbitrators, we're talking about an institute that promotes as well as does a lot of training and handle dispute outside the regular court houses. So when we're talking about resolving disputes, you have to first of all look at, do I want to use arbitration? Because when you talk about arbitration, it's slightly a bit formal than the other mechanisms like mediation or conciliation. So if you're looking at arbitration, then if you have a dispute you want to resolve, you need to first of all put in your contract an arbitration clause. So like I said, arbitration is formal. It goes with having a contract that's in written form. Okay?
So if there's no contract, I can't come to you.
You still can.
To say, Ayo did this to me, I want my money.
No, you still can. When we're talking about arbitration, you still can, because you and Ayo can agree to say, you know what, we don't want to go to court. It's going to be a hell waste of time for us, money and resources. And you know, we have a very good relationship. Why do we want to ruin it? So let's use arbitration. And what you're going to do now is sit together, write out something, signed by the both of you, and then you will explore arbitration to resolve the dispute. But then if you have a dispute with Ayo and you don't want to go into all that stress of having to write a contract, then you can proceed to mediation.
Exactly, because I was going to ask, if that problem does exist and we agree, but I really don't want to pay her, how binding is that contract?
Well, if it's arbitration and you've agreed, it's written, it's binding, it's final, it's a finality. You can go outside your agreement.
In which case, he would refuse to sign it.
No, if he has not signed, then there's nothing you can do about it.
Good.
It's okay. So then you will have to explore mediation.
So he can run away with my money.
No, he can't. There's still always a recourse. There's still always a recourse to it.
Well, you've talked about arbitration, you talked about mediation. Any other words?
Any other Sean?
There's conciliation, but it's a little bit technical. But right now in Nigeria, where I speak, we use more of arbitration and mediation. Those are the two most popular.
What's the strongest tool that anyone who is going to be an arbitrator, what's the strongest instrument or tool that the person needs?
The strongest tool that you need to be an arbitrator is a good level of maturity, your ability to communicate, to listen to people, and your ability to be able to reason out stuff. That's basically it.
So if my name is Patience and I'm not patient, I can't be an arbitrator.
Yeah, it's not that you can't be. It will be challenging. You will need to work extra. Because the way arbitration is, you are a quaestor judge, and so there's certain ethics and conduct that's expected of you. So if you're not going to be able to uphold those ethics and conduct, then you'd rather not be an arbitrator. Because any breach of any of those ethics can result in your reputation being imperiled, your whatever you have done that we call an award being set aside by the law court. You understand what that means? So if you feel you're not going to be a patient person, you're not going to be able to live by the ethics of the profession, then you rather not be an arbitrator.
Okay. Is it true that many arbitration matters in Nigeria are actually resolved abroad?
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here this morning to talk about it, because that has been a major challenge for us in the arbitration sector.
Why is that?
Well, you know, typically the way the things are in Nigeria, a lot of the time we believe what is foreign is better than what we have. We have a very wrong mindset in that area. And then secondly, internationally, they have been able to paint the picture of countries like ours to say, you know what, you don't have the requisite skills, you don't have the enabling environment, and so on and so forth. But I always say to people, well, they have a point in terms of where maybe as regards an enabling environment, you know, is a work in progress. But when it comes to skills, we have all the skills and expertise here. And I say, if you can do business in Nigeria, then you can arbitrate your disputes in Nigeria. Basically because you know that Nigeria is an attraction, is a good place for investment. You're making money from Nigeria. You are growing your business here. So why can't you resolve your disputes here? Of course, we cannot shy away from their reasons as well, because there's a need for us to have an enabling environment that is arbitration friendly. For instance, our court system, the time it takes, for you to move from one court to the other court, from the court of first instance to the Supreme Court, and so on and so forth. And then also our laws, because our laws are still, our old laws, our laws are 20 years behind time. Everybody all over the world has moved up. We are still using old laws. So they have a point, but all I'm also saying is that there's also a need for them to look beyond just these issues that they have raised, to look at, do we have the requisite expertise here? And can we create the environment for them to arbitrate here?
Do we have the requisite expertise?
Of course we do. I'm one of them here.
Okay. But my challenge here is, your institute has been active since 1979.
Yes.
And whatever the issues that the institute may have had or could have been having, shouldn't they have been resolved over the years? What are those challenges, and why has it been difficult to tackle them to the level where, the world will recognize and acknowledge the strength of the arbitration skills in Nigeria?
Let me start, first of all, by saying that when it comes to the issue of expertise, we have the expertise here. We have a lot of arbitrators. I can tell you for a fact that my institute has trained over 4,000 professionals across all professions. And we have trained MDs, captains of industries. We've trained Supreme Court judges. We've trained judges from all the courts, from the first instance to the highest court in Nigeria. We have trained senior advocates of Nigeria. So many people. I don't want to start really railing out who and who we have trained. But when we talk about expertise, we have them there. But the issue here is expertise is not sufficient, okay? You want to have, when you have an arbitration matter and there is an award, okay, in Nigeria, done in Nigeria, then it means that if there's any challenge to the award, the Nigerian courts will have jurisdiction. So if our court system is not up and running as it ought to, then you see that that's a challenge for them. So arbitration cannot stand on its own without having a viral court system that is up and doing.
So the problem is in the enforcement of the awards.
The problem is in the enforcement on the award, and the problem also has to do with our laws. I remember I said to you right now that the arbitration law is 20 years behind. Mm-hmm. So if everybody have moved up internationally and we're still using old laws, then definitely there's a deficit somewhere that we need to deal with. As I speak right now, we have a bill before the National Assembly on that to amend the Arbitration and Conciliation Act to make it up to standards. So we believe that if the National Assembly is able to pass that bill, then that area would have been resolved. And then moving forward outside the arbitration bill, there's also the issue of, when we talk about wanting arbitration to be done in Nigeria, there's also the issue of having a national policy on arbitration. And I know that a committee has been set up, but I also believe that the committee needs to be expanded to accommodate the users. There is a need for the stakeholders to be all-encompassing, so that it is not a top-down approach. The practitioners and the users must own the bill, If not, it will be dead on arrival.
Is that what the Chartered Arbitrators Conference, is that what it's about?
Well, the Nigerian Institutional Arbitrators Conference, that is part of what we are going to be looking at. It is about making arbitration and ADR work for Africa. We want to write our own stories, and we want to own our own process. Okay, so we want to be a good player. We want to be a major player in the scheme of things internationally, because 80% of the arbitration matters that come out of the shores of Africa comes from Nigeria.
Okay, so
and arbitration is a multi-billion dollar business. So in Naira, it's not It's not cheap. So we are saying that this conference...
From the recent awards and things that we've been having, that
Yes.
really is a fact. That $9.6 billion is quite a lot of money. But when and where is this, conference taking
Okay, the conference comes up on the 18th, from the 18th to the 20th of November. And is a virtual conference, and what we have done, because we want Nigerians to be aware, we want to create that knowledge gap that is there. Remember you asked me, is it for everybody? So we are saying, come and participate in this conference, because this conference is an eye-opener. It's not a Nigerian conference, it's an international conference.
So someone is watching now wondering, how can I be a part of this?
All you have to do is go to our webpage, events@nicap.org, and register. It's a free conference. Events@nicap.org and register. It's a free conference.
How do you spell NICAP?
NICARB. And register. Is a free conference. And we have speakers from all continents. We have the UNCITRA, the Secretary for UNCITRA, United Nations is going to be online. We also have the World Bank, the Secretary General of ECID is going to be also online as well for the conference. So we want every Nigerian that is interested in moving the resolution of dispute forward in Nigeria to be a part of this conference.
That sounds like a place to go, right? I hope they will serve tea and lunch. But anyway, thank you very much for being part of this conversation. Shala Oshodi John is Registrar, Nigeria Institute of Chartered Arbitration. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Oh, yes. As long as you can guarantee me lunch. All right, so we'll be back after now for just another topic. Please stay with us.
Welcome back, and thank you once again for staying with us. Now let's look at the challenges of transportation in Lagos. Lagos is the largest city in Africa and probably the most populated as well. But its transport infrastructure is not as developed as it could be. We have with us in the studio Dr. Olukayode Bawa-Allah, former Managing Director, Lagos Municipal Transport Services, LMTS. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. And joining us via Zoom is the Dean of the School of Transport of the Lagos State University, Professor Samwell Odell. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, and with you is my immediate dean, Dr. Bawa-Allah. You could see his picture in my office there.
So, Doctor, unfortunately, following the EndSARS protests, a large number of BRT buses were burnt. It brought a lot of sadness to a lot of people, because even with the numbers growing, people still felt that there was not enough. There were not enough buses in Lagos. So how would this singular act affect transportation in Lagos State?
Very badly. It affects transportation very, very badly. It has taken us 3 hours to move from Ikorodu to this studio. Along the road, you will see hundreds of people waiting for public transportation. Bus system was just the alternative to the metro system anticipated for Lagos. We went for the bus system just as a palliative, pending the time we will have the capacity to run the metro system. The metro system or the mass transit system had been brought in eventually by one of the administrations was still to be operated. So while we are having the bus system, and some people now went and bought 850 buses.
That many.
That is what we bought. 2018. 850 buses. Part of them were just released to the public
Brand new buses.
early this year.
Professor,
After a
isn't it
lot-
ironic that
Pardon?
isn't it ironic that it is those who actually use the services of the buses
Yes.
who are there burning down the buses?
Burning down the buses. After the government had gone through a lot of stress, even to get the buses out of customs. They were there for many months, and the government eventually got them out and had the challenge of even how to distribute them. But eventually, they came out with a concept. And that concept brought those buses at Oyigbo there, only for the NSAR to burn them down. Very, very bad.
No, Professor, this matter of transportation in Lagos, why do we always concentrate on the road, the road, the road? Isn't the pressure on the road too much? Shouldn't we be looking at other options of moving people around?
There are options.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm asking the professor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And it's nice to be here. It's a matter that we've been discussing, and there will be no end to this discussion for a long time. I also joined Dr. Bawala, my immediate past dean of the School of Transport and Logistics, to lament the burning down of those buses. It was even a week before that incident that the head of Primero, the BRT person, was calling on the School of Logistics and Transport to join him, that he will be asked to manage some of those buses, that we have to do the logistics of the deployment just a week before. And it was really a massive pain. Now to your question about the predominance of road on the modes. Well, for the first instance, road is ubiquitous. Road is everywhere. You cannot move water to where water is not. And the rail is rigid. And we have neglected it for so long. So all the options we have really neglected them. In fact, it was because we had no choice. We will have neglected, even you could see some aspect of neglect on the roads, but at least we have to move from point to point. So we have water, we have rail. Lagos is trying to rejig the water with the Lac Ferry, new boats, and with the operation of new lines. And Lagos is lucky in the sense that if we get it right, we'll be able to get a lot of transportation, that is deflood the roads along the lateral axis where the water line exists, to put them on water. It's just that also that one suffers so many problems. I've said it before. There is a problem of access to the jetties. There is a problem of the jetties themselves. There is the problem of the routes, the waterways that are wrecks on the water that is creating serious problem. Then the type of vehicles deployed, because Lac Ferry boats cannot be enough. There are private operators that are on the waterways, but it is inadequate. But the banana boats that you see that are most common, they don't have cover. You can't wear your suit and say you are going to the office and you are coming from Ikorodu. You'll be drenched because 90% of them are open boats and they are open to weather elements and all that. So that is why road becomes the most dominant. And well, if you ask me, why is it that we are having problem? I just mentioned it and stopped there. The problems are well described, but There is indiscipline of everybody, in addition to the burning of our buses recently that will have ameliorated the situation. There is the situation of people doing their market on the road, and there is the mismanagement of traffic at construction sites where they are doing road repairs. There is no plan at all to manage traffic on construction sites. And the road condition is there, and the commercial buses that we have, they have extremely low capacity. I've shouted about this for long. The BRT buses will have been a replacement, but I've always believed that we better produce, let it come from within, because for God knows what, the burning of those buses might not be unconnected with the fact that it's going to compete or push the yellow buses off the road. These are hypotheses. But if it has come from manufactured in Ikorodu or manufactured in Epe or Badagry, it will come from us, and that antipathy to it may not be so obvious. So, but part of them all is indiscipline. And the indiscipline makes traffic gridlock. And this leads to need for law enforcement. Unfortunately, in recent times, the law enforcement officers have been under attack. So we are in a terrible cul-de-sac.
Well, let me ask Dr. Hawala, what you said the other time about the 850 buses. I don't know. Alera was able to express how she felt. I can't, because I'm completely at a loss. Let me ask you, how much is it going to cost the government to replace those vehicles if we're going to go through replacing them the same way? We'll come back to this suggestion made by Professor Odell. But how much will it cost the government to replace those vehicles if that has to be done? Because clearly, with the experience that you talked about, the hundreds of people walking on the road, that is highly essential. How much is it likely to cost?
That estimate will be very difficult to establish now in view of so many factors. I think the principal factor will be the present rate of exchange of the naira. It has affected importation, and the buses were imported.
Clearly.
Therefore, if it has cost the government 2 billion naira or 3 billion naira in I think in 2017, they were here by 2018, it won't cost them the same thing now.
No. Exchange rate was...
It will cost them more.
There's something you said earlier, Doc, that pricked my interest. You said that the bus system was a palliative to the metro system that you talked about. Hitherto, we had the bus system. You are former MD of Lagos Municipal Transport Service in Lagos. So if we had that system at the time, what was the projection, and why was it difficult for us to get to that projection of the metro line on time before we had to use the palliative?
That goes back to many, many years. Many, many years. As far back as Lagos State was created in 1967. Yes. JN Sapas was the very, very first bus company. Lagos City Council acquired Lagos, JN Sapas.
In Nigeria?
In Lagos. Subsequently, when the state government was created, Lagos City Transport Service was acquired and turned to Lagos State Transport Corporation. And there, the bus system grew by leaps and bounds, government buying more and more buses. An administration came in and said, we should go for the metro line. And survey was done, everything was planned, but it was turned down. at the last minute, even after we had paid some fund. We lost some fund in Lagos State because of that. Metro line now has to come back.
Before you get to that point of the metro line coming back,
Yes.
let's take a short break. I'm very interested in this one. Perhaps we could start that business we've been talking about after now. You can't imagine the kind of things that we've been talking about while the break was on, because it's actually very heart-wrenching for those who know how to think. Well, Dr. Olukayode Bawala is still with us here. Well, you were talking about the point at which Metro Line came into the conversation, you know, in Nigeria. But there are a number of other questions on my mind. The bus system is a palliative, that's what you said. But it seems like the palliative is the main thing now. Before we get to that, let's go on with the story where you before we went on break.
The metro line, having been stopped, the government needed alternative. And so a delegation was sent to the World Bank, led by my humble self, to go and find option. And we came back and recommended terms of reference for necessary consultancy as to be able to source out the alternative. And the alternative came out to be bus system. Because at that time, BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, had just been introduced in the South American countries. And we found it, at least, to be able to help the developing countries that cannot afford to run metro line. And so, that was recommended, but with a proviso that Lamata should be created. Mm-hmm. The President Lamata, to take care of the transport system in metropolitan Lagos, with the aim of getting the ultimate infrastructure for urban transport, that is mass transit. That is why Lamata is there. Lamata had successfully established the BRT. Unfortunately, they cannot go beyond their offices. Some people have to be on the road to operate. And the very first attempt to operate the BRT was unsuccessful. You all know what happened. The buses came out and they went back again. Another attempt is being done on Ikorodu, Lagos BRT route through Primero. That's another attempt. Another attempt is now being introduced between Oshodi and Ota. Hopefully, they will succeed. But the ultimate is what is happening along Lagos Badagry Express Road, the Blue Line, and the one that is happening between Ido and Alagbado, the Red Line, plus 5 other lines that had been identified in Lagos. That's the ultimate. We will continue to have buses being bought, buses being burnt, buses being scrapped, but the infrastructure of the mass transit will remain there. And that is the ultimate for Lagos. Thanks to God, government at least promised us that by 2022, the Lagos, the Badagry, Agbara, Marina line will be commissioned.
Sorry. Doc, you spoke about, when he asked the question about replacing those buses, you spoke about exchange rate. And before that, you had spoken about how long they had spent at the ports when they arrived. But we do have companies in this country that can make buses for us, don't we? What is wrong with those buses? Or what is wrong with those companies building buses for our use?
Nothing wrong with them. Patronage. They are there to exist, to make profit, to produce and make profit. But if there is production and there is no sale,
No, but if they're commissioned, for instance, Lagos State orders, make us 1,000 buses, for instance.
fair enough. Let the Lagos State order.
So why
The
are
ones
we...
that were born came from outside Lagos.
Why do we spend... but now you say that it's practically impossible to replace those buses because of the exchange rate.
Yes.
So
Highly impossible.
what is going to happen?
Sit down and look.
Oh my God. Well,
Dear.
Yes, that is the truth. The government has just come out of COVID-19 expenditure. The economy is down. The government has raised a committee to fund the rebuilding of Lagos.
Not to buy buses.
All these are signals for all of us in Lagos to see the situation of the government financially.
Dire.
Well, some would say, from what Alere is saying, some would say that local production of these buses would look like a plausible low-hanging fruits.
Yes.
Now, you have talked about some other companies that have come and are no longer as strong, if at all existent. You've talked about what's it called? Volkswagen in Lagos, Peugeot in Kaduna, Anamco, I don't know if...
In Enugu.
In Enugu, if they still exist.
Stia in Kano.
Okay. So, now, those ones
Leyland in Ibadan.
existed. And Leyland is a bus-making organization.
Of course.
Right.
What is wrong with us bringing those back to generate these vehicles and create employment?
There is nothing wrong. It's governance. Governance. Pure and simple. Governance. If a government or an administration decides to establish industries and identify transportation industry as one that requires buses and say, yes, let us support this sector. And they build all those motor factories, industries that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And another administration comes up and says, oh, no, let's begin to import.
Okay.
That's
well,
it.
we will
That's
we'll
all.
go to Prof in
That's
just
all.
one moment. But
Governance.
having consulted, for government before now, if you would you advise the Lagos State government to patronize local bus making companies?
Well, place there. There's a place government that is there for building of buses. It's there. It's still vacant. That is one. There's another place along Ikorodu, Ogijo, reserved by this very Lagos State government to refurbish all the buses being run by government. Yes.
Okay.
It was given to me when I was the general manager. It's still there. So they have made their efforts. But if governance changes,
Policies should not change.
the policy should not change, but it has changed in the last 4 or 5 years. And that is why you have the situation on the road in Lagos as at now. Fort Mainland Bridge was stopped. We lost 4 years in that. Ikorodu, Ishawo Road, that will have taken me from Ikorodu to this place in less than 45 minutes, has taken me 3 hours, abandoned.
Oh dear.
Yes,
Professor-
those are the things that we should relate with governance. We are lucky that we have about 5 of them that are in charge of transportation in Lagos today. They know their owners, and they have been there for some time.
Okay.
So they are not novice. They are concerned with the policies that have been established, the service, the plans that are there, and that's why they made their policy as at now number 1, traffic management and transportation.
Now, Prof, it seems like we took 3 steps forward towards solving, well, at least improving our situation in Lagos. And then we now took 10 steps backwards with the burning of all those buses. So, where do we go from here? What happens now?
Well, we have taken that steps, and as you mentioned to Dr. Bawala, now we have no choice. The money is not there. We also had that we recall that even the money to purchase those buses, we are the special intervention fund. It's not even the money that is Lagos could hardly dip his money into his pocket and pull out. It was the money of the special intervention fund that Lagos just put aside, Ambode government just put aside and said, okay, let me use it to import these buses. So it's not out of pocket money. So even in normal times, that's not something that we can easily get. So for me, replacing those buses is going to be more than a World Cup. So that is number one. Number two, the manufacturing plants that you mentioned, actually, there were about 12 of them. At the time they were established, you have mentioned the folks in Lagos, the Leyland at Ibadan, Mitsubishi, Ilorin, Steer in Bauchi, that's Kano, in Bauchi Steer, then Peugeot in Kaduna, Mitsubishi and Toyota, and so on, and Mercedes-Benz and Amco in Enugu. Well, they all died, like only very of them are left. So personally, that is not what I'm recommending. What I'm recommending, and I've had this discussion at the good quarters in Lagos State, that it's better the Lagos State government gives specifications of high capacity buses, or like the Bolware of old, but modernized to be able to accommodate large quantity. These are buses that you will just import the chassis, but the entire building of the bus will be locally made. If you go to Nairobi, you will see these are the buses that are moving. The technology will be domesticated. The employment is there and replacement is there. The cost will be easy. Let us not look towards the Leyland, the Peugeot, the Toyota, and so on in the country. We will still have challenges. Let us, just say, look, if you want to operate this type of model, this is the type of model, technical specifications, go and fabricate it anywhere. Don't give them any place. Nigerians will rise up to it, and many hands will be on deck. Not me having to. I've always known that we will have problems with those buses, because even maintenance, although there is a maintenance yard established, but I know, but this is not where my mind was going to. That was not what I was thinking about. Now, secondly, on the metro line, well, the metro is difficult anywhere in the world, but the one that Lagos has put in place, the red line, that is Ido to Agege to, what's the other place there? Now, I've said, and I think it is going to operate like that. Lagos should not operate an independent line. There should be synergy between that line that the federal government is bringing from Agege side to Apapa, so that there will be no duplication of effort. The one that I think Lagos should emphasize more now is the yellow line that goes from that Ido Marina side to Ekpe, because that axis is becoming a tightrope for Lagos transport. You know, Lagos is known by its length rather than by its breadth. From Badagry to Ekpe, you will see that it's a linear state. So if you solve Badagry to Marina, then you take it from there to Ekpe. You have solved the spinal cord problem, transportation, because that's the major artery, the major spinal cord of Lagos transportation corridors. So you can take others, Agege down to Ido. So they should focus on that, because even the road they are making, that road, Express Lekki Road, they with heavy traffic that Dangote is going to bring on board on that road, it cannot withstand the volume of that traffic. So with a good rail system to take it, and Dr. Bawala mentioned the Agbara to Marina. Honestly, that has been so long in coming. It was abandoned for a long time. So I think for now, the one thing is that palliative on our roads to keep the traffic moving at all minimally. Palliative on the road, get the water running. I mean, the little that is running on water, and quickly finish the little rail that we
Thank
we
you
putting
very
in
much,
place.
Professor Samwell Odell, who joined us via Zoom. Professor is the Dean of the School of Transport and Logistics, Lagos State University. And we had in the studio Dr. Olukayode Bawala, former MD, Lagos Municipal Transport Services. Of course, this conversation goes on because it's affecting everybody who lives in
And I'm the
Lagos.
pioneer dean of that school, where he is now. From I started that school.
Thank you very much for
2018.
coming, sir. And thanks very much for joining us,
Very good.
Professor.
Thank
you very much. Sunrise will return in just a moment. Do stay with us.
When I woke up this morning to come for this program, I was meaning to be in as early as possible. But then, just like you.
Man proposes.
This time, I'm not even sure it was God that proposed this one, because disposed this one, because some people just seem to have decided to have their way. I mean, I was early enough, hoping to, of course, you know the way it is in broadcasting, you want to get in as quickly as you can. But then, I, as so many other road users, woke up to multiple fire accidents at Kara area of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway this morning, just as you can see.
Oh dear.
From information, the incident, residents claim, started around 12 in the morning, 1 a.m. today, along the corridor. We understand also that about 29 vehicles were directly affected and millions of properties are destroyed from what you can see. What figure we do not have now is if there are fatalities and how many. This is definitely something that is giving anyone concern as we speak now. This is the early hours. I mean, earlier this morning, this has happened, and a good number of vehicles, private and public. Someone said it started because of a tanker truck, bearing fuel, caught fire, and all the vehicles around were burnt alongside. We'll probably hear more of that from the Sector Commander, Federal Road Safety Commission in Lagos, Mr. Olusegun Ogungbemide, who joins us via phone this morning. Thanks for joining us. Well, this is what we woke up to this morning, and definitely everyone is concerned, man hours lost, but more importantly, let's take the story from the beginning. Tell us what happened and how.
Good morning.
Good morning, we can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, it was the early hour of this morning I received the information of a crash along Kara, which we've been able to survive for some time now, and this one just came up. That's precisely after 12. And I tried to mobilize my men. I led the team. We're on our way when we received information that there were attacks on the fire service that tried to extinguish the fire. The vehicles of the fire service were damaged, and they had to make a retreat. And this prompted us to also take cover, pending the time we were able to mobilize enough police operatives to the scene. So by the time we got to the scene, precisely after 2 o'clock, the policemen were there, but a lot of havoc have been done. So many vehicles have been burnt, and the occupants of the tanker carrying the fuel were already burnt to beyond recognition. And at the early hours, towards 5, 6, were able to clear the road of obstruction. So what we have as a terrible gridlock that we are experiencing in Lagos now is the backlog of the traffic problem, the traffic hold-up that came up as a result of the initial obstruction. Thank you.
Sorry, what did you say caused it?
It was a lone crash. It was a lone crash involving a tanker carrying fuel outward Lagos. That's going outside Lagos towards the Ibadan-Lagos Expressway.
Okay.
And nobody could actually say the cause because whoever you pull up at were already late. The driver is late. The motorboy is late also. But we believe because it's a very free road, there was no other vehicle involved. So we can actually conclude there is an outright human error. Maybe due to like what we're able to confirm, we saw a tire burst among one of the tires of the burnt truck was somehow looked like a tire burst, which could have eventually led to loss of control. But there was no other vehicle directly involved. All other vehicles that were burnt were vehicles that were parked by the roadside. So I learned there's a car dealer beside the road who happened to be who received the major blow because there was a luxury bus that broke down by the roadside that was also consumed, but nobody was affected, nobody died, nobody got injured, and all other vehicles that were parked by the roadside too. So I would rather attribute it to human error because the road was free at the moment when it happened, and the vehicle was the only vehicle flying that road at that moment.
Now, when you said there was only one vehicle, that this truck was alone on its own, and then these other things came on, I'm just wondering, as a number of other people would right now, how did it get so bad as to affect the entire road now? Is it that the fuel spilled to the road and caught fire along the lines, or what exactly happened, for a clearer picture?
Yes, from what we met on ground, the vehicle had already fallen across the road, and all the content is the content that spilled up that actually affected all the other vehicles that are parked by the roadside. So maybe, like I tried to infer, there was a tire burst, the man lost control, the vehicle fell, and the content fell out, and the vehicle got exploded. And that's what we met on ground. So when you have a tire burst and you don't have the professionalism to actually control or manage the vehicle very well, there's every probability for such to happen. And that's what we can attribute for now. The unprofessionalism as regards the ability of the driver and the status of the vehicle itself. Those are the things I can actually attribute the crash that happened this morning to. The road was actually free, and the road was not having any potholes, so I couldn't attribute it to bad road. We are at the spot where it happened.
So, Mr. Ogunbemide,
Yes,
should we be thanking our stars that it happened at about 1 a.m. when the road was relatively free?
You are not far from saying the truth, because if actually it was at the peak period, your own imagination is as good as mine. And actually, this incident wouldn't have gotten to this level if the hoodlums have not attacked the fire service. Because one of the major issues as regards traffic control and crashes, getting to the scene of the crashes, is prompt response. We cannot actually stop crashes from happening once in a while. Our ability to respond promptly is the major focus of all agencies. And that was exactly what we tried to do. We received the information and we're on our way when this attack came up. So we had to retreat for the safety of our men. And that was what made it to be this devastating. We would have been able to save a lot of property if we had been able to tackle it early enough.
Mr. Ogunbemide?
Well, there's so many issues to look at this, because, I mean, I'm wondering what informed the attack in the first place. What were the hoodlums looking for? If you can just answer that in about 60 seconds. What were they looking for that made them stop a rescue operation?
you know the tempo of or the season where we are. You cannot really judge the psychology of.
Well, we could go on and on about this. It definitely is not over, but then we have to thank Mr. Olusegun Ogungbemide, Sector Commander, Federal Road Safety Commission in Lagos, about the Kara Bridge multiple fire accidents. Well, we go to the U.S. elections now. I understand that our guest
Has it been called yet?
Are you in so much of a hurry?
Well, I'm not the only one. Everybody is just,
yeah, because
anxious. Well, what's going on? What's going on? The champions of democracy seem to be having problems with democracy right now.
Well, we have Dr. Sulaiman Barnabas in our Abuja studio joining us for this one. He is a political and developmental sociologist and former head of Department Sociology and Anthropology at Bayes University. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Everyone is looking
agog
at what's happening in the U.S. right now. Just wondering, I mean, if I don't know about you as well, but I saw someone on one of the social media platforms saying, look at me checking the results of the U.S. elections as if I'm going there tomorrow. Why the interest, if you can factor a reason?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I think the first reason for the excitement all over the world about what is happening in the U.S. is because the U.S. represents democracy, especially presidential democracy in the world. So there are lots needs to be learned as far as democracy is concerned in the U.S. And so if whatever goes wrong in the U.S. has a lot to do with other countries, and then people are watching to see the police of the world, people who condemn those who go against the ethics of democracy, they want to see how they conduct their own democracy and see whether they are actually walking the talk, or just being hypocritical about the ideals of democracy.
Okay, so this is where we are now, and a number of people are wondering, why does it seem to be taking a little longer than usual? If this happened in Nigeria, many people will probably be calling for the head of maybe INEC or any other agency like that. But for you, why does it seem to be taking so long?
Well, it's taking so long because of the the situation they have, at hand. Again, the time frame is still within the legal, framework. So it has not violated any law. Again, why people are actually bothered is because of what is coming from the President Donald Trump. The process is gradual, but I think that is working. And institutions are working. And so we should just relax and see that that's why from time, you see Joe Biden come and encourage the people to be patient, that the process is ongoing, there's no need to be bothered, and that however strong the President of America is, he cannot stop the process. And so at the end of it all, we will have something that is relatively free and fair, and then the winner will be announced.
Okay. What are your comments about the 3 Nigerian Americans who have won seats in their state houses?
I think it's a good development for us. We are happy that Nigerians are making us proud out there. There's no doubt that we have good Nigerians, qualified Nigerians, Nigerians that other people are proud of, And so I think that the Nigerian politicians must learn from these politicians and that give people, a chance. Don't use ethnicity, religion, other sentiments to undermine the democratic space. Once people are qualified, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their age, irrespective of their ethnicity, they should be allowed to present themselves to the people and be allowed to be voted into positions of power according to the will of the people. That's what democracy is all about. It's about the government of the people. And so Nigerians should learn that if Nigerians can become political office holders in other climes, there's no reason why qualified Nigerians in this space cannot occupy any political positions when they are qualified.
Well, Dr. Barnabas.
Dr. Sulaiman, I note that these three people are what you would call youth in Nigeria. They are all rather young people. No comments about that? You have no.
No, they are young people, and that's good. Although the other irony is that the presidential election, the people who are contesting are also very old people. It shouldn't age. It shouldn't be the major variable. Once the people are qualified, and they meet the age, they should be allowed to contest. It's for the people to elect those who are qualified, to lead them. Now, I think the most important factor there is the fact that there is representativeness. Young people are in the politics, old people are there, women are there, men are there. So you don't have a situation where people are deprived of their democratic rights on the basis of their age, gender, and what have you.
I'll come back to that, the other sentiments that you talked about, but for a moment, let me stay with that youth sentiment, if I can use that term. Now, there is a system that usually throws up political office holders, such as the young Nigerians that we are talking about now. If we were to situate that at home here in Nigeria, do you see the same political system being able to throw up younger people for such positions as these young people that are being recognized and acknowledged in the United States of America, irrespective of their gender, their other sentiments? The fact that they are young, what does it say to the system? And is there a way that we can learn a thing or two such that the system can throw them up, irrespective of who they know or who they don't?
Yes, I think that the young people have a lot to offer. Unfortunately, we have a political system, in our country that is highly monetized. And young people in this part of the world who have no godfathers, have no access to these funds that will enable them, engage in political contestations. So I think one thing that we must learn is the fact that the old generation must give the young people a chance. They must not use their resources. When I'm talking about resources, Nigeria is not even limited to money, the social capital. They must not use it to undermine young people. They should allow young people, they should sponsor, they should create, the opportunity for young people to actually participate in the political system, not just as voters, but as elected officials or even through appointments so that they can serve. I think the major thing we need to learn is that the political parties also must be able to give young people the chance to participate, because they are the future of tomorrow. They are going to be presidents in some 10, 20 years, to come. They must start learning now, as from the House of Representatives, the House of Assembly, other political offices, so that by the time they now start contesting, or by the time they are occupying political positions, they have what it takes in terms of the morality, talking about the virtues required, in terms of the capacity, to administer good governance, not just having people, whether young or old, who will come to the scene with a mindset of coming to enrich themselves and then get the people much more impoverished than they were before they got into that place.
Okay, let's quickly bring in Curtis Adigba, also a developmental analyst. He joins us virtually right now. Well, Mr. Adigba, this is where we are now. One of the issues, what we are really beyond time, but one of the issues that usually plays up when we, draw examples like this that Nigeria can learn from is that of sentiments. Dr. Barnabas has been talking about some of them, and he mentioned particularly ethnicity, which didn't come to play, in the United States of America. Otherwise, Nigerians would not be in their national and state assemblies. Is there a way, and this is something we talk about all the time here, we should get rid of all this ethnicity, religion, and all of those things. What do we need to do to make it really happen? And not just talk about it all the time, Mr. Adiba. Well. Okay, well, he's not with us. Okay, so Dr. Barnabas, the same question for you. We've been talking about it. Let's get rid of ethnicity. Let's get rid of religious sentiments. We've been talking about that for years. What do we need to do to make it a thing and not just a theological or theoretical analysis at all times?
Now, the things we need to do is, one, education and enlightenment. You see, the reason why it's difficult today for Donald Trump to have his way in the U.S., because Donald Trump is a typical politician that you can liken to a Nigerian politician. A politician who is not ready to lose. He gets into the game and he wants to win at all means. A demagogue, if you like to say. Until you have a system where the institutions are working, because institutional powers are actually stronger than individual powers. When you have strong institutions that cannot sacrifice the sentiments of an individual or even the sentiments of a group at the altar of national interests. Institutions that will ensure that they work to meet the values of democracy. Institutions that will not allow, people to use technicalities. Because what Donald Trump wants, for example, is to become the legal president of the U.S. But democracy goes beyond legality. Democracy must also involve legitimacy. And the institutions in the U.S. know that very well, including the Republican Party. They know very well that democracy must outlive Donald Trump. It must outlive this current regime. And so because of that, they are not going to sacrifice those values, those democratic values, at the altar of one man's ego, or a group, an ethnic nationality, or even a religious group. And so they try as much as possible to strengthen their institutions so that these institutions will bring up people, will be led by people of integrity, relatively, because in politics, you have people who have a whole lot of interest. But people who will ensure that whatever the case, they are not going to sacrifice their ethnic value. They're not going to sacrifice the national values at the altar of ethnic or religious values. So institutions are the major problem in Nigeria's democracy. So Nigeria should be working towards strengthening its institutions like they have it in the US, where even though Donald Trump's ego has been bruised, even though you have a situation where the most populated people in the US are the whites, those people are looking at certain values of their democracy, which they think that Donald Trump is not representing very well. And you now have them vote. Even Democrats have come out openly to say that they were never going to vote for Donald Trump. And we are seeing the results now. Recounting or whatever you have to do, the way this election is going, it is clear that Donald Trump is not going to make it. And the institutions there will not ensure that legality will take prominence over legitimacy, like you have in a place like Imo State now, where somebody, through legality, if somebody from Ford becomes first, or like you have in Bayelsa, through legality, the people that were elected by the majority have been shortchanged, and you have a governor who didn't win as the governor. So institutions must be strengthened, the legal institutions. These are necessary components of the democratic process, but you must not allow them to be subversive. Subjected to the wills of the strong man or the strong ethnic group. That is what I think Nigerians need to learn.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sulaiman Barnabas, political and developmental sociologist and former head of Department of Sociology, Bayes University, Abuja. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And that concludes Sunrise for this morning. We'll bring you a fresh package next weekend. My name is Alero Edu. Please stay safe and wear your mask and wash your hands and be good to your neighbor and to yourself.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Please take care of yourself. Bye for now.